Ave Maris Stella.
Hello and welcome back to Vatican II in a Year. This is your host, Father Matthew Schneider. I am a priest of the Legionaries of Christ, and I'm a theology professor. This is a podcast on the StarQuest Production Network at sqpn.com. Today we're on day 93, recovering Lumen Gentium 66 to 67 on praying to Mary. We are in chapter 8 of Lumen Gentium, the Blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of God, in the mystery of the Church, of Christ and of the Church. If you want to follow along, we have a reading plan and more details at sqpn.com/Vatican or frmatthewlc.com/Vatican. Yesterday we talked about how Mary is united to the Church as a mother and as a model. Today we're talking about how we are encouraged to pray to Mary and we are warned of the extremes in both directions, over divinization or, under praying to her, like barely mentioning her. So the subchapter here is for the cult of the Blessed Virgin in the Church. This is the only day we're going to cover this one. And here it's important to note the word cult. The word cult does not have the meaning we most often think about in English, like you're thinking about, the Moonies or some weird new religion. No, cult here just means any kind of devotion to or any prayers or images or pilgrimages or things like that, right? So this is, we'll talk about the cult to Mary, the cult to the saints. One of the things to be declared a saint is you have to have a cult, right? You have to have people asking for your intercession, because although we could name whatever holy person we want people who others are praying to ask for their intercession to go through all that effort to declare them a saint, right? So we're going to start here with paragraph 66, which is on the history and limits of devotion to Mary, right? So this is telling us that this devotion goes way back in the Church, back to the very early century of the Church. But let's read it. Placed by the grace of God as God's mother next to her Son, and exalted above all angels and men, Mary intervened in the mysteries of Christ and is justly honored by a special cult in the Church. Clearly, from the earliest times, the Blessed Virgin is honored under the title Mother of God, under whose protection the faithful took refuge in all their dangers and necessities. Hence, after the Synod of Ephesus, the cult of the people of God towards Mary wonderfully increased in veneration and love, in invocation and imitation, according to her own prophetic words. All generations shall call me blessed, because he that is mighty has done great things for me. This cult, as it always existed, although it is altogether singular, differs essentially from the cult of adoration, which is offered to the incarnate Word, as well as to the Father and the Holy Spirit, and is most favorable to it. The various forms of piety towards the Mother of God with the Church within her limits of sound and orthodox doctrine, according to the conditions of time and place, and the nature and ingenuity of the faithful is approved, bring about that while the Mother is honored, the Son, through whom all things have their being, in whom it has pleased the Father that all the fullness should dwell, is rightly known, loved, and glorified, and that all his commands are observed. Right? So this is this idea. Again, the word cult here is meaning devotion, all different kinds of devotion, prayers, offerings, pilgrimages, images, etc. Lighting candles in front of images, etc. Things like that, right? So it's kind of the whole encompassing of that. So the Christians have prayed to Mary from the very beginning. So we have this idea that the Mother of God goes way back. So Ephesus, which is mentioned here, is one of the first councils of the Church, is in 431, and it defines that Mary is the Mother of God. The term often used is Theotokos, which just means Mother of God in Greek. And a lot of the Orthodox or Eastern Catholics will use Theotokos as their main term for Mary. Like in English, in the Roman Rite, we tend to use the Blessed Virgin more often, but in the East, they tend to use the Theotokos, Mother of God, more often. And that's, and that was an important thing because somebody was saying, no, she's only the mother of Jesus' human nature, not of God, right? So that was what the council was defining against. And this council led to a lot of new devotion, new prayers for her, right? Because after we declare this, now this whole explosion of prayers for her, more people are praying to her, more people are asking for intercession, all those types of wonderful things, right? So the council is hoping, which unfortunately, according to Dr. Miavale, and I think history serves him right, didn't quite happen, but is hoping that this is an explosion of, devotion to Mary, love for Mary, prayers to her, pilgrimages, etc., after the council. And the the devotion here, though, is radically different from devotion to Jesus, right? It's not adoration. We do not offer adoration to Mary. We offer adoration to Jesus because adoration is only to God. Whereas all these other ones, they are to, we honor her, we respect her, we give her, we venerate her, right? But we don't adore her. And then the difference is based on time and place, right? So, for example, here in San Jose Diocese, there's one parish that's this gigantic, probably, 30-foot tall statue of Mary outside. And that's just something specific to that place, right? And we have other things. We have Our Lady of Guadalupe. We have the Rosary. We have the Memorare. We have different Eastern Rite things where they'll pray. You have the praying before icons or before paintings or before statues, all these different things, various time and place, right? And it's also the kind of enculturation of the artwork in the sense that every culture has made Mary and Jesus to look like them, right? So like I have on my desk here, I have a Sacred Heart and Immaculate Heart images. And I'm guessing they're painted by like some Irish people or something like that because they look very, very light skinned. And that's an enculturation. I would not expect these same images to be in, somebody who came from a culture with much darker skin, right? I am about as light as possible. My background is English, not English. My family background is, Irish, Scottish, and German. So all mainly, and then 1/16 the whole mix of other European. Anyways, let's move on to paragraph 67 on the church encourages all to pray for her. So let's read it. This most holy synod deliberately teaches this Catholic doctrine and at the same time admonishes all the sons of the church that the cult, especially the liturgical cult of the Blessed Virgin, be generously fostered, and the practice and exercise of piety recommended by the magisterium of the church toward her in the course of centuries be made of great moment. And those decrees which have been given in the early days regarding the cult of images of Christ, the Blessed Virgin, and the saints be religiously observed. But it exhorts theologians and preachers of the divine word to abstain zealously from both all gross exaggerations, from the petty narrow-mindedness in considering the singular dignity of the Mother of God. Following the study of the sacred scriptures, the Holy Fathers, the doctrines and liturgy of the church, and under the guidance of the church's magisterium, let them rightly illustrate the duties and privileges of the Blessed Virgin, which always look to Christ, the source of all truth, sanctity, and piety. Let them assiduously keep away from whatever, either by word or deed, could lead separated brethren or any other into error regarding the true doctrine of the church. Let the faithful remember, moreover, that true devotion consists neither in sterile or transitory affection, nor in a certain vain credulity, but proceeds from the true faith by which we are led to know the excellence of the Mother of God, and we are moved to a filial love toward our Mother and to the imitation of her virtues. Right? And we go back to this discussion we had Dr. Mervalle, that people thought it was like people thought it's discouraging prayers to Mary, when it explicitly says, like, it hopes we pray them all. We hopes we remind her of all the decrees, right? And it talks about the cult of images, which is some of the other councils. There was a whole issue of, can you make images of Jesus and Mary and the saints? And the church declared yes. And so this idea of, yes, you can make these images. And it was particularly in the East, so the icon style images were more the issue at that council, rather than the more statue type issues we tend to have in the West. And things. But that idea, right? It is saying, hey, we want Mary. We want people to pray to Mary. This is what the bishops at the council are saying. There's a kind of this weird thing in the spirit, quote unquote, of Vatican II, the spirit that's saying, yeah, there, but that's not what the text says. The text is encouraging us to pray. So at certain points, the spirit tends to go directly against what the actual text says. And what the church wants is what the text says, not what some person determines is the spirit. So anyway, we need to avoid divinization again, right? Avoid things that could lead Protestants into error. The Orthodox don't really have that risk, but, or avoid minimizing it. The Orthodox have similar doctrine to us. And then Mary is a source of holiness, right? For all of us, she leads us to holiness. And then finally, don't be vain repetition, or don't be transactional. Like the transactional is like, I pray a rosary and you give me this, right? No, that's not how our relationship would be. Our relationship should be like, kind of like a marriage relationship. I try and help you out as much as possible. You try and help me out as much as possible. Kind of in a marriage relationship, I heard somebody say, the best marriages are not 50-50. The best marriages are 60-40, where each is trying to be the 60. So take that as what we want for some marriage advice. But in that idea of our relationship with Mary, we shouldn't just be transactional and like, oh, I did this, you do that. No. So so thank you for listening to this episode of Vatican II in a Year. This is a listener-supported podcast, and you can donate to help StarQuest produce it. Another great podcast, sqpn.com/give. You can give one-time, monthly, or join the StarQuest Patreon. Tomorrow, we're going to continue with the next paragraphs of Lumen Gentium, the final paragraphs, 68 and 69, which conclude Lumen Gentium. Please join us then to learn more about Vatican II, to provide a blueprint for the Catholic Church. Go to sqpn.com/Vatican, frmatthewlc.com/Vatican, or Vatican SQPN on Facebook and X for more information on the podcast, such as playlists for individual documents and a reading plan.
Amen.